Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another podcast session, and I've got somebody to introduce that I've been waiting a long time to get on the show. He's great company, always a pleasure to be working with on panels and at conferences, and the person I'm talking about is Kester Meijer. So Kester, lovely to have you, sir.
Hello, Chris. Thank you. And I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah.
Really great. Really great.
Likewise. Now, Kester, I'll just open up with your title first. So, Director of Operational Integrity, Compliance and Safety. Quite a fancy title, my friend.
Yes. It took a long while to get it down. And no, but it's quite extensive because there was a big restructuring about 4 years ago, and we decided to integrate all of the operational integrity, compliance and safety into one department. And I must have done something wrong because they made me the director of the department.
No. I've had a lot of interaction with you, Kester, and justly deserved, my friend. Justly deserved.
Thank you.
Now, before we start, can I just ask you just to give the listeners just a brief overview of what your responsibilities are, and obviously we can't get away from it. How has this damn pandemic affected things for you personally and professionally over this last terrible year?
Yeah, and so the pandemic, exactly, it's like about a year ago, I guess, where we got into this kind of crisis mode at work. And also on the personal level, I had a lot of changes going on with moving house and all that. So it was quite a busy time. But I always tell people who are not in cargo, there's never a dull moment. Well, did that come true? Yeah. So And so first we went into this crisis mode. We had to shut down everything. And then with cargo, we started up again. And it was kind of a very strange situation that we had because on one hand, you are restructuring. You're looking at, we need to scale down somewhat. At the same time, we have never, ever been so busy in moving relief goods and moving other kinds of goods around. So that was a very, very interesting period. And we are still in kind of this state of the pandemic where we are now moving the vaccines to multiple countries around the world. And it's amazing that the exposure our industry is getting. It's not only my company or the company I work for, but it is really, you just look around and there's television when we arrive, there's fire trucks that are making us happy. And even the pilots are like, what is happening here? What's going on? And you have a president that meets you out on the tarmac to receive the first batch of vaccines. So it's very interesting. And the other thing I would like to emphasize, I'm so proud of the people in the departments because, man, they have had a rough ride and still have. We have seen so much work and all this work that they are doing under these conditions. Well, I take my hat off to everybody in this industry.
Yeah, no, very, very well put, Kester. And the point that you made there about how our industry, our business has now had such a high profile, and everybody globally now knows what logistics and supply chain and cargo is all about. If anything, it's a positive from this pandemic that I think so many of the next generation are going to be considering getting into this industry as a chosen career, and not just like many of us who fell into it because we lived near an airport or we knew somebody or we had relatives in it. So I think it's going to be a career of choice in the future, and that's something that we really need to capitalize on.
Well, I can tell you it's happening, Chris, here at our company, because as I said, we have been restructuring. Many people took about voluntary leave. So my department on the compliance side, I have around 34 people. 8 of them left the company. And now we are hiring for some empty vacancies. And what I love about it is that we have a lot of talent. And may I emphasize also a lot of female talent that is now coming into our business. New energy, fresh eyes, combined with guys like me, a lot of experience. And it is really a fantastic time because we have twice a week an operational call, which we call operational excellence, and the devil's in the details. So we talk about how can we help one another what's happening? Why are we seeing things change? How can we support one another? And again, also on the personal level, because especially for the millennials out there, it's for them even more tough, these circumstances. The Netherlands is in a lockdown,
Yeah.
so they have to stay at home. There's no social interaction, but man, they bring a lot of positive energy to our company and to the industry. So again, happy about the new colleagues that have come into the cargo arena, and well, I'm looking forward to working with them.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. You touched on another interesting point there, Kester, and it's something that no matter how young somebody is today, it's going to come to them one day. And that's when you get to near the end of your career, whether you choose to or whether it's whatever the reason is, there comes a point. Now, what I've seen pre-pandemic is that when people get to that point and they either make an announcement or an announcement's been made, it's almost as if somebody has just suddenly turned the light switch off as soon as that announcement was made. Right. And they're either forgotten, they're lost, they're put out to graze, whatever the term is. And it's such a shame, because if there was a different way of transitioning somebody with huge amounts of experience, and to give that experience as almost like a fuel boost to some of the new or younger members of staff, it would be a lovely way to do it. And if one didn't fear the other, or one didn't fear that the other was trying to protect things or keep things or push things, if we managed to cultivate a foundation where we could do that, it would be such a great thing moving forward. Because at the end of the day, experience does count. Energy, new ideas, initiatives, and open-mindedness is a huge engagement tool. So if we were able to do something there, it would be better for everybody, I think.
Yes, absolutely agree. And I think this is also, so never waste a good crisis. And I think that's exactly what we are doing here. We're trying to attract talent, new talent into the cargo. And I think because of also the exposure of that we are part of global trade, and a very important part, I think that people are open, as you say, they open their eyes and they like, hey, what's going on there in cargo? And so let's go have a look. And just to give you an example, I recently had a position I was allowed to fulfill internally inside the airline. I have never had so many applications from outside of cargo. People who said, "Hey, something's happening there. I wanna be part of it."
Yeah, no, I 100%. You probably would, but the amount of correspondence and contacts that I get from people who said that when they were thinking of a career, when they were going to university, when they were leaving school, etc., they were thinking of lots of different careers, and they were honest enough to say that especially getting into cargo was definitely not one of them. I've yet to meet somebody who sat in a school and when the teacher said, "What would you love to be, Johnny or Jill?" that they said, "I can't wait to get into cargo, Miss or Mister." I don't think that has ever happened.
Very true.
But what people are doing now is they're looking at which industries or which career paths were ongoing even at the worst times in the pandemic. And that's also now, pushing people towards their choices. So you've got the NHS, which is fantastic now. The numbers of people that are applying to get into frontline health working, brilliant. But also anything to do with the supply chain now, people are realizing that it's of much more value than it ever was before, and they're being appreciated more. So please God, touch wood, this care culture will continue afterwards.
Yes. And Chris, to add to that, I think that what people are learning, and I've learned it a long time ago, that cargo has a lot to offer in terms of developing yourself and having, it's kind of like a family culture that we have inside cargo within the company, but also with you guys and the media, with the people on the enforcement side, with our kind of competitors, but on safety and compliance, we are not competitors, we are co-creators. And so if you are thinking about a career and you're thinking about cargo, there's almost everything here. You have the commercial side, you have the revenue management side, you have operations. If you want to develop your leadership skills, hey, we have a job for you. If you want to understand about how do we go from a very old-fashioned paper world into a fully digitized digital world? Everything is here. All the ingredients are here. And if you love complex puzzles, cargo is the place to be.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're not wrong there, Kester. And again, you've touched on some points. You mentioned the word learning, and I think
Yes.
that's also something now that globally, from from realizing how important QHSS&E is, how important compliance is, risk assessments, emergency response, mitigations, all those terms that people, they were basically tick box exercises prior to this. Now they're being given a lot more credibility. But
Yes.
you mentioned their learning, and I think we're going away from training and development to learning and education.
Yes.
And we want people to understand why, and not just to be told what's important. And I know you're a great advocate of learning and education.
Yes. And learning is also about providing us a place where people can make mistakes and that we can give them feedback in the cargo way, but, which is sometimes a bit blunt, but and if you're Dutch, it's double blunt. But anyway, no, I think it's more than important. And we always say it's like maybe 10% classroom, maybe 20% online, but 70% of your learning is doing it, being in
Yep.
the job, executing it. So in my department, we also have the Cargo Knowledge Center, where we try to help people develop their cargo skills. And I will go this far that we even have an app. We have developed an app, which is more the technical side, where we say, we have learned something in doing business that we want to share with industry. So it's free for everybody to download. And it's like, so it's got two elements in there. One is co-loading of dangerous goods, for instance. And the other one is about how much beams do I need to do weight spreading. And these are tools that we developed for our own people, for our in-house staff in the warehouse. But hey, if it's good and if it helps safety, why not share it? So it's out there. So it's not only learning for ourselves, but learning for everybody who's open to it.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, and fair play to you. That really is good, because these data silos and protectionism and people, wanting to keep things and not. For me, that's such a silly approach to business. I think it's like sport, and the Dutch and the British have always had good good battles in sport. But if you play against the best, you always improve. And if you applaud what your
Yes.
competition does, the fact that you're a competitor means that you're also recognizing your own capabilities.
Very true. Very true.
And it's so important, to be a lot more confident. Now, I know a word that you and me have spoken about, and that you're very fond of: accountability. Okay. And you
Yes.
also mentioned earlier on about attention to detail.
Yes.
Now, there's a few cartoons going around where they show a young student at school, and the teacher says, "No, Johnny, I want at least 5 pages. So I want to know that you fully understood the issue and the topic and the subject matter." And then you've got young Johnny at work years later, and his CEO or his boss says, "If you can't put it on half a page or one slide, I'm not interested, because I don't have the time."
Right. Right.
Now, this conundrum of giving the time and understanding the detail, and also you mentioned about feet on ground, because that's where the business happens. And like the old iceberg, there's so much going on under the water. So from a 20,000 foot helicopter perspective, there's an awful lot that's missed.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry about this statement being a little bit long, but
No. I think it's spot on, Chris. So no, I'm happy that you're putting it out there for people. Yeah.
okay, thank you. One of the challenges that I see now is in hierarchy levels. Okay, one of the illnesses that I think is there is an organization is good, provided the people at the top say what they want, and the people at the top then check that it's being delivered. But an organization is great if the people in the middle are transparent, open, and they promote and they allow openness and compliance and competence, and they don't filter or shield anything because of their tenure or because of bonuses or because of their own self egos. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I've come across so many people that have got the ego of a 747 and the hangar of a Cessna.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that accountability now, which has come from this, is so important, because at the end of the day, no matter what you delegate, no matter who you outsource to, who your support service center is, who your GHA, etc., you are accountable for what must be done, and you are accountable to make sure that it's being done and it's verified correctly.
Yes. And I think that is exactly what we should require from our leaders, and as you say, the middle management. And even I think even the top guys, they need to get out there once in a while. Actually, we do. I had a guy, he was a truck driver. He came up to me and said, yeah, you've got something to do with safety and security, right? And I said, yes, absolutely. He said, you know that gate, we have to wait for 20 minutes for security to show up, and it's a lot of waste. It's a waste of time. And the fresh behind me for our customer, we wanted to deliver it quick. And I said, well, hey man, show me. He said, what do you mean show me? I don't have pictures. I said, well, I've got my safety jacket on. I'm with you. So I hopped on and we went to have a look. And I think that's what we want our people to do, and also our middle managers. It's not just about instruct and delegate. It's also about support. Help people to understand what is required. And when they are extremely customer driven and they come to you with a complaint about something, well, for me, that is very easy.
That was easy.
Because it really is.
I think you need to pull that up. Let people who are watching, let them see what you got there. Now. Go on, give it another one. Give it another push.
That was easy.
Yeah, because when somebody comes in with a complaint or with something that's going right, I mean, it's free advice, it's free consultancy, and you can do something about it. It's about, we have all these words about empowerment, but I read a book when I was very young by Tom Peters called In Search of Excellence and a Passion for Excellence. And he had this 4-letter acronym, and we love acronyms.
Yeah.
Was management by walking around or by wandering around, whichever version you prefer. And I think that is something that when I talk to the new generation here at work, I'm like, all right, so what are you doing for the next hour? Well, I'm busy with my email and all that. So forget about your email. Let's grab a car and drive around and see what's happening.
Yeah.
Or go in the warehouse and talk to people. Just talk to your people. It's so simple, but we are all heads down into our phones, and especially with this pandemic, Chris, I guess what's happening is that we are coming into this treadmill of sitting behind a screen full day, drinking coffee, water, whatever your guilty pleasure is, and corresponding through mail. I think that's silly. It is, of course, a requirement of the job, but if you truly want to be accountable, understand what your people do.
Yeah.
Understand the difficulties that they run into in their day-to-day job, and ask, how can I help? How can I make it better for you? How can I make it so that you can do the job proper, so our customers, they pay our paycheck, right? Our salaries. So the customer, end of the day, is a happy customer.
Yeah.
That's what we do it for.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, just on that, and I totally agree with you. I think we've now moved forward because lots of people did it as a PR exercise. So it's a little bit like people putting posts up now and LinkedIn and social media. They're doing it more because they feel they have to, rather than the value that it's actually bringing or the impact.
Yes.
And we've got enough professional, brilliant journalists. That's one thing. Sorry, I've got to touch on as well. Hats off to all the journalists in our industry, because they've kept people informed. They've been positive. They've been upbeat. They've been direct. Absolutely brilliant. But I think managers now, they need to do this walk around or feet on ground in a structured way, so that they're actually aware of the critical points now that have come up from this pandemic, and that they monitor those, rather than just hello, and is the dog okay, and what did you do last week, and why is that box the wrong way up, etc. I think it now needs to be a lot more structured, and then in that way it can also feed, and especially in your position, it can feed back into the integrity and the compliance and the safety issues, and it's also making them more aware and bringing them closer together with the people on the ground.
Yes, and so what we did with the pandemic is that my colleague, who is the vice president of worldwide operations and our cargo control center, with the three of us, we sat together with also other colleagues, and we said, how can we guide this organization through the crisis, but also make use of what we are learning? And we've called it operational excellence calls. So we have a drumbeat, because you talk about structure and monitoring. And what we do is every Monday and Thursday, we have a call with a group of around 26 key people in ops. And what we do is, so on the Thursday, typically we look at three things. How much work is coming towards us? How is our workforce? Are they okay? Do we have enough people at the right place? And the third one, what is the quality? And on all three topics, we look to the past week and we look, what can we expect in the upcoming week? And are we all set? And we will not dive into a lot of detail, but everybody in that call, every unit has a 2-minute slot to say, okay, these are my key items, and this is where I need help. And then we have a brief discussion about it. On the Monday, we then focus on what are our improvement plans. So then we look more into the projects and the things that are a bit more like 2 to 8 week periods. Like, you know, in that cool cell, the Wi-Fi is not so happy. So we have to log into our system. Okay, Mr. IT, you're also in the call. How can you help us? And I think this drumbeat is essential. That is not a one-off or once per month. No, it's on a weekly basis, twice a week. Everybody has their slot assigned, and they know now that if they have a key question, they can go there and ask for help, and they will receive help. And we track it. We monitor progress. And the other thing is, and that's again, that was easy.
That was easy.
We also have the just do it stuff. We have the just do it stuff where we say, oh, come on, guys. Why are we over engineering or over complicating this? We are cargo. Sometimes keep it stupid, simple. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
We put it on the list. We assign it to a person. And talking about accountability, next week, you come back to us and you tell us what you did and what happened. And if you run into anything, I want to hear that too. And again, both of my colleagues, actually it's their show, but they have asked me to chair it so they can go into the dialogue more on the content. I think that's also something that we've learned in working together. Formally, it's not my role, but apparently it's something I do well. And so they have given me the floor, and what they do well, that's what they are doing. And yeah, it's like, as you say, it's like a soccer team. We all have our strengths, and we like to put them to work for us.
Yeah, I think what we're going to have to do now is we're going to have to create some more of those buttons or buzzers. So we're going to have, you know, will do, and just do it, keep it simple. We're going to have a few of them, yeah. So we'll be able to roll them out. Yeah. No, but I agree with you 100%. And now something that's very topical, and obviously this show will be going out in a week or so, or a couple of weeks, but it will still be topical by then, I'm sure, is this incident with the fire on the pallet on the runway.
Yes.
Okay? So it happened in Hong Kong. Okay, it's very clear what the product was, very clear people involved. And now, Kester, people are concerned, and they're thinking, right, what should we do now? Should we have full embargoes? Do we do this? Do we do that? Now, obviously, we have to wait for the full investigation to come out,
yes, so
that we've got all the facts. But there are certain things that should be done by everybody in a sensible fashion, but also to be aware that this could happen anytime, and especially now with e-commerce, with post, with the way the volumes have ramped up, and also the lack of transparency as to what's in each one of those particular packages.
Yes, so true. And I think where you touch on the e-commerce, I think that's the most scary part. Whereas, okay, so you have the basic flight safety, where that's our core responsibility. I always say it's the boom, the burn, and the balance. I don't want explosives, bombs. Yep. I do not want a hidden DG or a not declared DG to trigger a fire during a flight. And the other one is the weight and the balance. That's kind of the 3 Bs. And that's number 1 on our list. And so as to Hong Kong, I've even been there myself to look at the situation. It's been a theme for a long time. And I know some time ago, we decided that as a safety barrier, we would not accept fully built pallets because the technology there is not there yet to find the hidden, undeclared dangerous goods in those small parcels. But it's really interesting because if I would send you a present, and within the and within the EU, we now have to declare what we are sending, what the value is, and all that. So apparently, when you send something, you have to provide a lot of information, but the information is not being passed on.
Yeah.
So that's really silly that we do not reuse that information in a way that keeps us everybody safe and secure. And so I think again, not wasting this crisis. People who are not very tech savvy, they are becoming used to interacting with computers and all that. So I think this is the time to really move forward boldly and say, look, if you cannot tell me who you are, what the product is, where you're shipping it to, what the end use is, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that package. And because we need multiple barriers. There's not a single barrier, I would say, that is fail-safe. And we need to do more what I always call fire prevention instead of firefighting. And Hong Kong is another great example. And again, this was not undeclared DG, but with the e-commerce, you can order a spare battery for your laptop. And there's even suppliers that will say, hey, I will not attach the label to it because it will say that the capacity of the battery is too high. So you will have to attach the label yourself when it arrives. And it's really, come on, it's so stupid. We need a button that says, this is stupid. And we can push that one. Yeah, this is really stupid. No, but I think a lot of the public is very unaware that when they do order such a spare battery or whatever electronic device with battery inside, and they try to circumvent a very safe product that's been tested and that's packaged and shipped in the proper way, that they are actually endangering people's lives. And I don't want to be too heavy-hearted. We are on a positive show and all that, but no, it is a serious topic, and Hong Kong proves that. And well, we will do anything that we can to prevent it and help the industry to improve the safety there. And I think it's also Hong Kong where at some point we will need to put in the HS codes, the customs harmonized system codes.
Yeah.
It will become mandatory, and that might help in categorizing the cargo and the packages. But the consolidations, that's going to remain a headache. And there's one more aspect to it, because I've touched on the physical side. We are increasingly looking at data monitoring tools that somewhere in the description, being houseway bill or masterway bill, is there a trigger word or a chemical description, whatever, that kind of triggers a flag? So it used to be culture was cargo needs to fly. And today we are more like, well, when in doubt, ask questions. And I think that's the culture change that we need to go through, again, inside, but also outside. And that's what we need to do together. Ask questions. And if you don't think it's safe, don't move it.
Yeah, I think 100% right. And I think you've now created another B for your B list. So not just now boom, burn and balance, but also bravery. And I say bravery because now as we're bouncing back or we're bringing back better from this pandemic, the most important things in everybody's minds, eyes, and especially ledgers is cash flow and costs.
Yes.
And any commercial pressures or customer pressure, I think now businesses have to be brave, and especially in our industry, to say no, and no means no. And on that point, you shared a presentation with me, which I think is really, really good. But you've got the 5 compliance commitments.
Yes.
And I think if we go through them now, they're so relevant and obvious, but necessary. So the first one, know what you transport.
Yeah. And that goes again to the data that and the trigger for this unfortunately was something negative that we had to go through. It was kind of a court case in Dutch where they said it was about houseway bill information. I said, well, I'm not the owner of the houseway bill. And they
Yeah.
said, yes, but you carry it into our country. So that's how it all started. And I said, okay, it made me think, because sometimes it's good that somebody gives you a wake-up call. And for me, this was another wake-up call. Know what you transport. If you are carrying goods on board of an aircraft or a truck, whatever, road feeder service, and you said, I think it's a great word, accountability, and you need to know what's inside that shipment. And it can be a diversity of products. It can be something, animal welfare. It can be illicit wildlife trade. It can be counterfeit medicine. Again, counterfeit pharmaceuticals is a
Terrible.
huge problem in Africa.
Yep.
And so I was raised for my 6 years in Kenya, in Thika. So I have this warm bond with the continent, Africa. But I think it's really, really strange that we have the basic information from producer to patient. There are 17 entities, people, parties, whatever, who are touching that shipment. And most of them have no clue what's inside.
Yep.
So know what you transport, know what's in there. And I think we need to talk to supply chain parties and say, look, if I'm going to carry it, I need to know what's inside. Even if you consolidate it, yes, I will trust you, but I also need to monitor. And therefore, the topic of self-filing, which is now in several legislations, a more accepted way of working. How do I know that if somebody else is self-filing, I do not get that data, but I am carrying that shipment on my airplane? How do I know that they live up to the standards that we are setting?
Exactly.
And that's really a problem today, and even more on e-commerce. And I do know that, for instance, the US Customs, the CBP, Customs Border Protection, they are really struggling. I've had a very good conversation with Thomas Overacker. He would be great on your show, by the way. Thomas he's been in the National Targeting Center. I've met him there on the ACAS program. It's great having a talk to him, because I think that's another thing, co-creation with these guys. It's good to have this dialogue and not look at us as being the bad guys. You know, you are transporting all these goods into our country. No, we are on the same page. You protect your territory. We protect our assets, passengers, crew, cargo.
Yep.
So we have a common interest here. We need to work together, open up, be transparent. Let's teach one another, learn together how to assess these risks and then mitigate.
Yep.
And again, this is something we need to do. So know what you transport is a key principle into sharing the data that's relevant. I don't need to know your commercial information, but I do need to know what I'm carrying.
100%, 100%. And I think where people get mixed up, and it needs to be re-emphasized, is the difference between responsibility, the word, and accountability, the word. And so many of us are responsible for lots of things, but few people are actually accountable for the outcomes of those responsibilities. And it's very easy to bypass your responsibilities or delegate it on, but you cannot delegate accountability. And that's what people need to understand.
Yes.
It will come back and rest in your lap or on your desk or in your backyard. And it's
Totally
so important.
Yes, totally with
And
you.
you said earlier, it's got nothing to do with being the bad guys. It's about co-creation, and it's also about doing the right thing for the good of many, which is why our industry is so safe.
Well, and it triggers me into something that we call just culture. So in our safe KLM safety policy, we have a principle called just culture, and I'm sure that many other companies have it as well. But we have a reasonability test. When somebody makes a mistake, we have 4 key questions that we'll ask, like, did somebody do it for a personal gain? If the answer is no, it's an organizational problem.
Yeah.
Did somebody do it on purpose, and would somebody else do it? Well, if somebody else would do it as well, then maybe we should look at our procedures and policies. Does a disciplinary action have any learning effects on the organization? If people do not understand that somebody's being punished for making a mistake, don't punish, because it will backfire. People will close up. They will not report. We want an open reporting culture. And the last one is, or actually it's the third one, is, does the person who made the mistake, does they have a learning, do they demonstrate a learning attitude? Because if they have a learning attitude, then you have a conversation. And we always, I told you about our Cargo Knowledge Center, we have a compliance keynote paper that we put out. So if something really serious happened, like Hong Kong, or something inside, we will write it up and we'll share it with people. Say, look, somebody made a mistake, and we're not going to tell you who it was. They probably know, but it's not relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to learn from what happened here. We want to prevent. Again, it's about fire prevention and not about. Yeah. So yeah, I think I've I've said enough about it, but
No, but it's
I'm very passionate about all this. Yeah,
you are, and that's what marks you out from the crowd, which is a great thing. But what you've also said there as well is that learning. I mean, what people don't understand is, like lithium batteries, there's been lots of incidences where pallets have been transported on forks incorrectly, and they're dragging on the tarmac, and there's a friction response or a friction impact where things have been dropped with batteries in that can set it off. Pressure, being squashed or compact, just dropping them, all those things. So if people can actually feel that they can report that, then there's an option. You can hold it for a period of time, and there's lots of things that you can do just to be precautionary, and like you said earlier, to mitigate against a negative outcome.
absolutely. Yeah. By the way, I like your word bravery. I've written it down. I'm going to add it. It's going to be the 4th B.
That's the fourth one. Yeah.
Thank you. Is it copyrighted, Chris?
Yeah. Well, yes, for all intents and purposes, yes, I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to have
Can
that.
I use it? Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Of course you can. So now we come to the second one of the 5, which is, catching these discrepancies, and obviously having a system in place that is almost like a very small fishing net instead of a great big fishing net, so that we can catch things as early as possible.
Yes. Yes. And so I took the concept. I was thinking about, what does this ACAS thing mean? It's like I always tell people outside of cargo, it's the ESTA of cargo. If you look at the American context, but obviously there's Canada, there's the EU, there's Japan, there's many other countries that have a similar program in place. But I do love the way that CBP, you can hear I'm a fan of CBP, because they, and let me not forget my Dutch customs, by the way, because we work a lot with CBP Canada and with the Dutch customs, because they're very open to innovation. And looking at this ACAS tool, I was thinking, I have an IT background. My first 10 years in KLM, I was the manager of the data center and service desk. It was my last job in IT, and before I came to cargo. So I'm like, how can we leverage all that data that is streaming through our systems and the supply chain? How can we leverage that data to identify risk? And then we had the ACAS example. I'm like, whoa, this is so powerful. We should take that data and see if you can get a hit. And let me not forget to say, you always need people to look at the hit, because I'll give you an example. If a shipment comes up with the word marine somewhere, okay, that can mean several things, but I'll give you 2 examples. One, it can be marine base. Oh, wait a minute, that could be something military. Let's check if we have all the permits. It's not that it's not allowed to fly, but we need to make sure we have all the permits in place. But the other meaning could be, hey, it's marine harvest, like salmon. So that's okay. So this one in our system would show up as an orange or yellow traffic light. We would go to a targeter, they will have a look at it. And if it's marine harvest, they will give it the green light. If it's marine based, they will give it the red light, and the targeter will start asking questions. And I said, as early as possible or practicable. I would like this not to be asked when the shipment shows up at operations, because then it comes to a grinding halt. Our industry is about speed. You choose air cargo because of the need for speed. And therefore, if at booking stage, I can already identify this, I can go back to the customer and say, hey, you haven't tendered the shipment to us yet physically, but we have 1 or 2 questions. And I must say, I must commend my colleagues on the commercial side. They have been extremely supportive in in bringing these mechanisms into their way of working, into their tooling, and into educating their crew, the customer service people, the sales people, to say the more early we get this information, we can ask these questions about risk, the more early we can give it the green light. And if you really think about it, you could also kind of generate or create a green lane.
Yeah.
Because we always, we keep moving it until it stops somewhere.
Yeah.
And a typical shipment, I think it touches at least 2 or 3 customs or security agencies or health agencies. So why wait? I had once a very brilliant project manager, I mean a trainer. It was early on in my career, and he said, "Well, Kester, so what's your project title? What's your objective?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure." He said, "Okay, here's a very important lesson. Write it down." So I took my pen and I said, "Okay." He said, "Where do you want to hang?" I said, "What? Excuse me? Where do you want to hang? At the beginning or at the end?" I said, "Well, obviously not at the end. I don't want to hang at all. So ask the questions at the beginning, not at the end or halfway." And I think it's the same principle applies to what we're doing here. The more we know up front, the more we can do. And I saw it with the relief goods where Dutch customs, again, praised them. They opened a phone number for us that if we knew that goods were coming to the Netherlands from, for instance, from China or wherever, we could already provide them with information that they would receive again later in our formal ICS declaration, but we could pre-send it and they would pre-clear it so that hospitals, patients, whomever should not wait for the goods to be cleared once they arrive here. And I think this is a key principle, is as early as practicable, understand what you are transporting, ask the questions, get them answered, and keep the goods moving.
100%, 100%. And another acronym for you for ACAS is All Cargo Action Safely. And if people realize that is the primary reason, and I applaud you if what you're saying about commercial and IT, because there's so much that could be filtered out at the very beginning if the bookings are done correctly, with salutations, with messages that this call is being recorded for quality and training purposes, just to make people start to realize they have to do certain things in a certain way. And a lot of those pre-checklists that can be on everybody's websites, and even pictures of incidents, fires, etc., to make people realize that they're doing something that's very important and that they are at the very beginnings, the origins.
Yes.
Of that all cargo action safely.
Yes. And we have, and to demonstrate that, it's not only words. If you would go to our website, we have 4 nice big buttons, and the 4th one on the right-hand side is compliance and safety. It's not somewhere deep down, hidden in the small fine print. No, it has a very prominent place.
And so it should do. So it should. That's great. Now then we come to the 3rd one on the list of 5, which is where the bravery comes from. Yes. No means no.
Yes, give me people. No, and again, we are in the business of moving goods, and we want it fast, and we always want it safe and secure. So our primary objective is logistical solutions for trade that wants to move the goods in a fast way. That's why they also pay premium over maritime or rail. And that will always be one, but number 2 is always safe and secure. Now, the human factor is always, in my view, somewhat underestimated, because we come from a culture where people, again, have been told time and time again that, why is that cargo still there? Or a customer is on the phone, where's my cargo? Can you please move it? So now we had an example where a customs organization had stopped a shipment. Customer phone said, where's my shipment? And the agent in operations, by the way, it wasn't customer service, but the agent went like, there's something funny going on here. I see it has been stopped. Wait a minute, you really need it, right? Yes, of course I need it, said the customer. And we said, all right, you know what? I'm going to cut a new area bill so it can move again. No means no. So this got me into huge trouble, obviously, with this enforcement agency. And we're still good friends, by the way. But again, it was a learning experience that we should tell our people, like, we are very happy that you provide this excellent service to our customers. However, when we as a compliance and safety department say stop, please stop it, because one shipment that is really in the bad place, in the wrong place, that could kill a lot of goodwill, but also financially mean a lot. It could also cost you the more easy processes that we have in place now, because then an enforcement agency might say, I trusted you, but now I don't trust you anymore. So we need to check and monitor everything that you are sending. Well, we don't want to go there, right? So I think this is, again, very educational. No means no. It doesn't mean that you cannot help customers or whatever. And that's why number 2 is so important. The more we do up front, the less we have to do no is no.
Exactly. And the more that's done up front prevents people from falling foul of what I call the 4 Fs. So we've now got 4 Bs. Now I'm saying 4 Fs, which is fear, flexibility, favor, and familiarity. And wherever they exist, if you don't do enough up front and knowing what you transport, it leaves human beings open to abuse, manipulation, pressure, etc. And that's not a good thing for our industry.
Yes, and we are, especially now in the pandemic, we are a target, not only of physical. So because, the logistical solutions also for the bad guys, they kind of dried up. So they started to try and it's been a very interesting period. But no, I agree with you. We need to make sure that we are not infiltrated, but also on the digital side. I think that's also, we really need to learn and understand the espionage going on, especially with some countries being very keen to understand where it's moving, who is involved. So I also told a colleague who was on LinkedIn, and in their profile said, I'm in this very critical part of the organization. It's like putting up a big banner, look me up and threaten me. So no, but just as an example, it's, people should be aware what you put out there is being read by a lot of people, and sometimes there's some bad people in between.
Yeah, it's that's another pandemic waiting to spread, and we need to address that as well. And again, in a different way, leadership in a new way. It's all about your number 4, which is a nice little segue about preparing for continuous change.
Yes.
And everything now, this last year has proven that you can change cultures, you can change rules, you can change borders, you can change habits, you can change people's mindsets. It's an incredible year that has probably shown so much has been done in 1 year that normally would take maybe 10, 15 years.
Yes. And so there's another favorite quote of mine. I think it was Yogi Berra that once said it. It's like, even if you are on the right track and you just sit there, you'll get run over.
Yeah.
And I think we need to keep moving. If you look at global trade, what is happening? Read the papers, whether you read national papers or international, or you get your news from whatever media outlet that you find interesting. A lot is shifting. The other day I read in the Wall Street Journal that China is starting its own digital currency, and the Americans are, well, they're not afraid, as they say, but they are a bit worried now. But also on trade. Trade is so much part of the global geopolitical situation. And obviously how it rains down on our industry is that all of a sudden there's a member state that wants to have more information, or they don't want stuff to move from A to B, or they put people on a sanctions list and all that. How do you keep up with that? If you do not keep up with that, or you get, for instance, I give you a very practical example. They ask you to move some type of goods to a country, and you think like, is this really the end of the movement, or will it be picked up and then moved to another place where you are in violation of sanctions? So this is something we really need to understand. And again, also, we haven't talked a lot about the industry groups, but like IATA, TIACA, Air Cargo Netherlands, and so forth, but also groups like EU IPO, which is the intellectual property organization of the EU. They have been very forthcoming and helpful in monitoring change and coming with information saying, hey, you need to pay attention to this one or that one. And again, they are very, very, very key piece of our industry to understand and monitor where change is, how we can prepare for that, and that we don't get caught unprepared. We need to prepare.
Yeah, and to collaborate very well together, because they're stronger. The cake grows if we all stick together, but if we just focus on our own slice, it'll shrink very quickly. Now, the last and the fifth point, which was integrate and innovate, that fits in nicely with what you were saying about the cryptocurrency, because anybody would have seen, in this last year, Bitcoin going up 10 times from $5,000-$6,000 up to over $60,000.
Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal. And the fact now that it's, the stock markets, everybody, the banking world are starting to show recognition, and it's a change. It's a change.
Yes, and it's even, there's a professor in Australia, Jason Potts. I met him in 2017, and what he basically described me is that we are building a complete new financial but also social system with this entire blockchain movement, and Bitcoin is one of the examples here that even Elon Musk and even now Paris Hilton, the celebrities, are jumping on board right now. So I think we are preparing for some broader adoption here. So, but the key principle is what we've been talking for the past hour or so, because it is about trust. How do I trust somebody else without knowing that person? And how can I assure the authenticity, the provenance of the goods, the authenticity of the data, the integrity of the data? How can enforcement make use of all that? And I think especially for supply chain, there's so much value in this blockchain development. And why integrate? Because if you look at air cargo, what is not flying with air cargo? Almost everything goes on board.
Yeah.
And so how do you know all the rules? How does a warehouse person who is either accepting the documents, or if you wish more early, the booking, or accepting the physical shipment, how do they know? Maybe if they recognize the goods, the product, how can they know what rules are attached to that? And I think we have over 3,500 rules and restrictions in our databases. There's no one human being that can know all that. And this is why for all those topics, from being responsible on counterfeit and illicit wildlife trade, to the basic safety, the license to operate, for all those topics, you need to integrate. And then to make it into a simple traffic light for people to understand, this is good, this is green, this one can go, do the green lane thing, or no, here we have to ask questions, or this is a real red light, we should not move this one. And that's why we need to innovate. I have another F's, I hope you can beep it out, but the 10-finger beep, that when I had a nice example for you. There was a shipment going to the US, and there was a freight forwarder agent. He did not know what to enter into the machine. So he just made up his own 3-letter keyword, origin station. We sent the data to CBP. They were on the phone within 10 seconds from the National Target Center. What the heck are you bringing into our country? And I was like, what's the problem? And they said, well, in the available information, there's a 3-letter airport code, which belongs to a military airfield in Iran.
My God.
So this person inadvertently, without knowing, had input this military airfield code. I was like, oh my God. So this is why we need to innovate. It's really stupid that we are retyping. And again, the cost-effective solution is typically, oh dear, we have 2 systems. You know what? I'll give you 2 screens so you can type from the left screen and re-enter it into the right screen. And people make mistakes.
Kester, exactly. No. Yeah.
No,
SLA,
stop that. Stop it.
Yeah. SLAs, everybody wanted to do it their own way.
Yeah.
Everybody created a shortcut or a bypass with, like you said, blockchain, artificial intelligence. There's so many ways now that at the front end, we can reduce the errors and make it easier for people on the floor.
Yeah. And Chris, did you know that a printer, if you print from your printer, I from mine, that it is actually as good as a fingerprint. Somebody told me in this international of intellectual property stuff, they told me that with your camera in your smartphone, and the proper program, you can detect whether that when you take a photo of that label that's on the shipment, and let's say that the printer was registered in the pharmaceutical manufacturing factory, and that signature was put on the blockchain, which is immutable, is there, boom, you cannot copy it. That when you take a picture at acceptance of that label, it will tell you whether it was printed in that factory or somebody at home who was trying to copycat it.
Fantastic.
It's amazing, this technology. Well, as you know, I love technology, but technology has no value if we do not bring it to the people, and if we do not have a concept of operations in working together in the supply chain. We need all three, and we need to combine it and make sure that we innovate and integrate. And again, that's those 5 principles. I think they're a terrific guideline to understand where we want to go, where we need to improve, and to, with all that change going on, how to make it meaningful to people. Because again, if you're new to cargo, we always say it's simple. It's a box from A to B, but the more you know, the less you know.
Exactly. That's a great way. That's a great way to finish. The more you know, the less you know. Yeah.
Yes.
And listen, Kester, joking aside, my friend, I could talk to you for ages and ages. And under normal circumstances, when we hook up, whether it's in on one of the committees or in the meetings, but normally socially, you're a great company. I appreciate you. I've got a lot of respect for what you do. Your energy and your enthusiasm is superb, and well done for what you're doing. And look forward to seeing you somewhere very soon.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was an honor to be here. And I really want to echo again what you said before. Praise to all of the media who've been, even before the pandemic, always writing in a positive way about our industry, because we are in this together and we need to get out of this together, and I hope in a better shape. So thank you very much. And first drink is on me, Chris.
I look forward to that one, my friend. Please God.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks very much, Kester. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheers.